Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Excited to talk to Tom Daniels, who's been my son's ACT tutor for the last year plus. Tom, it's great to have you on the show. I think it's, this topic is so relevant right now, especially with, we're in COVID and what ACTs and SATs, mean moving forward and currently taking the test, et cetera. But I want to read a little bit of your bio because you have a great background.
Okay.
A successful career as a teacher, administrator, and coach at Brother Rice. And then you decided to combine all these skills, and you're the owner of Daniel's Dworkin Tutors. And you basically prepare students for standardized tests. And you've been a huge help to our family and my son and my daughter in a couple of years. So I want to kind of jump in and just kind of talk about, before we talk about just kind of the prep of the test, let's just talk about something current, which is, what are colleges going to do about the tests this year for new applicants?
I heard that some colleges are considering waiving the ACT requirement or the SAT requirement. I think that is a bad idea. You want to make sure that the student is a proper fit for that university.
Right.
You don't want to have somebody coming in and it's over their head or it's beneath them and the ACT and the SAT are really the great equalizers. So many students can get a good grade point average, but what do you do to equalize that or to differentiate between a young man getting a 4.0 at this school and a young man getting a 4.0 at that school? Maybe one school has a little more rigor than the other. So how are colleges to decide unless they have this equalizer called the SAT or the ACT?
Right.
And, what you have to go back to, what is the purpose of the test? The purpose of the test is to show that you're ready for college.
Right.
That's why they have it. These skills are what colleges expect a student to have when they enter their doors.
Yeah. But what about people who can't take tests? For example, like I'm the worst test taker. I think I'm a smart person, but I'm the worst test taker maybe on the planet.
Well, I don't think I tutored you, did you?
No, you didn't.
There you go. What are you talking about?
30 years ago. That's how I wish I knew about you 30 years ago. But what about the bad test takers where they could get to a certain university, but even, but they can't take a test?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I hear what you're saying. There might be anxiety that a student has, and they just can't reach the potential.
Right.
Well, there are other ways to get into your college of choice. I've had people spend a year maybe at OCC or community college,
yeah,
or maybe even a regular university and then transfer. No one says you can't do that.
Yeah.
But it's just another hoop you have to jump through.
Yeah.
But I would say, though, John, given proper tutoring,
yeah,
the overwhelming majority of students can reach their goal.
Yeah, I love it. So let's dive into that. Let's dive into what kind of proper tutoring, because I would agree. I was not properly tutored. I did not know I was dyslexic. I would have had, double time in today's world, kind of slow down. And so let's talk about proper tutoring, because I watched you and my son go through it. It is a long commitment. It requires a lot of study, a lot of tests. Kind of talk about that. I'm a business coach, Tom, and one of the things I talk about a lot is the power of consistency and how it compounds. Discipline, resilience, etc. And for this journey that these kids have to go through, it's all, they have to do all of that.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And another thing I'm sure you do with your business coaching is you want your people, as I do, to gain confidence.
Correct.
Once they gain confidence, watch out.
Yeah.
So as I tutor, I'm making sure that the student becomes comfortable with the material. We have a lot of fun with it. I tell them right from the beginning, your job from the beginning is to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you make mistakes, you expose what you don't know, and
Right.
then we can go to work in studying it, reviewing it, and learning it, and knowing how to approach that question the next time around.
Right.
So I take all the pressure, I try to anyways. I know there's a great deal of anxiety because of the test, but I try to make it as comfortable as possible. And John, let me tell you, when these kids become comfortable and they become more confident, it's amazing
Yeah.
how well they can do.
Yeah.
It's just I get goosebumps thinking about it because I have thousands of examples of how students have learned and reached their goals.
Yeah.
You know, they'll come in and one of the first things I ask them, I say, well, what is your goal? You know, what do you dream about? And so many times they are very sheepish and they kind of look down and they say, wow, I think that, I don't know because I do have a good grade point, but this standardized test, like you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
is getting in my way. And I said, well, we're not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah. You got such a great demeanor, Tom. This is the first time we've met. We've gone back and forth via text for the year.
Yes. And your wife too, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's great to finally meet you. But I agree with you. I think confidence is so key in everything. So I just want to kind of reverse engineer that. Like, if you can go a little bit deeper, because right now you have your tutoring company, but you've been a coach, you have been an administrator, and you have been a teacher. And so I'm a big believer in business that first you have to increase your awareness, then you have to shift your mindset, and in that is confidence as well. And so what's your formula and recipe for helping people not only get to their confidence, find their confidence, but tap into their potential?
Oh, respect. I think it starts with the respect. At one time, I was the dean of students, the dean of discipline at high school, and a lot of people would say, "Ooh, that's a tough job," or "Ooh, you have to deal with so many problems." And not really. You treat people with respect, they're going to treat you with respect.
Yeah.
You in coaching, just like you're coaching in business coaching, what do you want to do? You want to bring out the best in your players.
Right.
You want them to play hard for you. Why? I was very fortunate. A lot of people heard of Coach Al Fracassa, football coach, probably number one in the state as far as wins. And I learned from him too, how he brought out the best in people. And that was through respect. And once you give respect, you're going to get respect.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Like, define respect. Because I think today with different generations, it means different things.
Yeah.
You have the right. I think that's just, you have the baby boomers to the Gen Zs, and and above and below. So what does respect mean today?
Well, I think respect means it's very hard today to respect someone. We have had these generations have had so many disappointments. You think of the Catholic priests, you think of police officers,
right.
You think of parents who have let people down, have done terrible things and let people down. And so I think today, most students, most people are very wary of any authority. And so since you're wary of authority to begin with, you're thinking to yourself at all times, well, what does he know about this? Or what does he care about me?
Yeah.
And what is it? So it's very scary, to tell you the truth. When you don't have, like when I was growing up, you're a lot younger than I am too, John. But when I was growing up, you just automatically had respect for your elders. That was it.
Automatic, yeah. Respect your elders. I grew up. I think I heard it, 500,000 times.
Yeah. These kids, these generations that you mentioned, they found out, right down the line that these people disappointed them, and they didn't deserve respect. Mm-hmm. And
So how do
that's it. So I always tell my students, getting back to this about respect, I say, look, there are three people who really want you to do well. Hopefully you're the first one, right? I mean, that's got to be the key, because you're the one doing the work. You, the student, are doing the work. And then your parents, of course. And then I say, but I'm third. I really want you to do well for a lot of reasons, selfish reasons, of course, because then maybe you'll refer me. But we create a rapport, very close rapport with these students, because it's one-on-one. You can't hide, you can't run. I know all your weaknesses, and I can help you with your joys as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about mentors for a second, because you bring up some really good points. I think it is, I'm a big believer we all need a minimum of 3 mentors. We all need to help people accelerate our growth. We all need people to help us stay in alignment and away from distractions that we think are the right path. Whether it's athletics, whether it's school, whether it's business, it doesn't really matter. I am sure, like you, have multiple mentors in many different segments of my life. And so what are some of the things that someone needs to do to actually pick a mentor?
That's you have to join groups, right? I know your son plays tennis.
Yeah.
I always ask my students, what do you do? What do you do? Well, I'm on the lacrosse team. I'm in the National Honor Society. I'm in the Spanish club, whatever. And I always encourage students to do more. Obviously, you can be a mercenary and do it because you want to put it on your college resume. That's good too. But you have to join things. You have to give of yourself. And then when you're out there, you go, wow, this person, this man, this woman that I see around school or is my teacher, but now that I get to see them away from the classroom, they're awesome. Whether it's my coach, whether it's my mentor of a group, but you got to put yourself out there and find people, find people. And the most popular clubs, the most popular sports are the ones that have good coaching, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. You're, and I think even with, you're talking about putting yourself out there, even with tutoring, I mean, you're getting kids, and initially they're a very vulnerable state, right? I mean, they take a test. Most probably aren't happy with their score initially. I think there's like this expectation of what they think they should have. And if they don't, or should get, and when they don't get it, it can be self-defeating. And so you got to put yourself out there just to even sit across from the tutor, surrender and be open to the coaching, right?
I love that word, surrender. That's exactly right. So you might ask the student, why are you here? Well, my mother made me come here, But after the first, one thing I like to do, I ask the student, I say, hey, how tall are you? And the girl might say, well, I'm 5'5". I said, well, you know what? By the time you leave here today, you're going to be 5'7", because you won't have all this pressure on you. Like, oh my God, I'm never going to go to the college I want because I didn't get a good score. So many of these kids take the ACT blind, without any preparation. Let me tell you, not because I'm a tutor or an owner of a company, but that is one of the worst things they can do, because they crack. They get their score back and they go, oh my God, I must be stupid. I'm never going to go to college, much less the college of my choice.
Yeah, I mean, you guys helped Jacob get his score up about, I think, 4 or 5 points, and it was great. And he was supposed to take it over the last, couple months, but it's been canceled. But
yeah, I know, it's been awful.
It's been great, but the surrender is a big thing, because even surrendering, and I'd love your opinion on this, just how you take a test. Like, let's talk about the mindset of, there's one thing once you get into the flow of the relationship with you, the tutor, right? But But then there's the walking in. It's like, okay, this test is going to potentially seal my fate. And so what's the mindset that you need to prep the night before, the morning of, the during? Like, how do you get back to center to bring your best self to a test?
I love that question, John. In fact, almost always in my last session before the student takes the test, we address that. You know, I think you have to put out there, what's the worst thing that could happen to you?
Right.
And they'll say, well, I could get a poor score, you know. And I go, okay, are your parents going to kick you out of the house if you get a bad score? What's going to happen, really? Well, nothing. I'm just not going to get the score that I want, and I won't be able to apply to this college. But usually I'll say, well, yeah, but you can take it again. So let's not put all our eggs into one basket and sit there and be thinking the absolute worst. And then here's another, this is probably the best thing I tell them. If you hadn't come here and worked on this and practiced this and done your best over a period of time, then I would say you should be very, very, very nervous if you hadn't done that, if you hadn't prepared. But I want you to look yourself in the mirror, and I want you to say to yourself, Mary, I couldn't have done more to prepare.
Yeah.
I tried my very best to get ready for this. And then we relate it to sports. You practice and practice and get ready for the first game. And you say to yourself, well, we couldn't have practiced any more than we did.
Right.
And maybe your opponent is going to be better than you. But whatever happens, your team, you have prepared the best you possibly can. And that's a good feeling.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love the way you articulated that. You know, one of the things I talk about in business is the importance of just, I call it executive time, but it's really meditating. And it's really figuring out how to get yourself back to center and very focused and grounded. But something that always haunts me is I was going to maybe get my master's, so I took the GMATs blindly. I just didn't study. I just went. I figured I needed to take them. And there was a girl in there who was taking it for the second or third time because she wanted to get into some Ivy League school. And so she was sitting right next to me to my right. And she, like, we were on section 4 or 5, and she went back a section, which you aren't allowed to do. Maybe you are today, you weren't then. And she got caught, she got her test taken away, and she ran out of the room crying, like hysterically. And before the test, she was telling me how nervous she was and how important this was. I mean, her score was already unreal. And so I'm 48. This was, I was 22, and it still haunts me. I still haunting for her because of the pressure that she was under for herself.
I feel so sorry for her.
I know, so do I. And so for all the people listening right now, how do they, and you mentioned earlier, you're going to be 5'5", you're 5'5", you're going to be 5'7" when you leave. How do kids, and how do parents, frankly, stop putting so much pressure on their kids, and how do kids stop putting so much pressure on themselves?
Wow, that's a great question, John. Great question. Some kids will tell me, well, everybody in my class has gotten a 33 or something.
Yeah.
And I go, no, those are only the big mouths.
Right.
Those are the braggers. Okay.
Right.
Because the rest of us, and I always say us, the rest of us don't get anywhere near that.
Yeah.
So don't be comparing yourself to people who are in such a tiny, tiny minority of it. And, I'm a firm believer in you're going to, in life, things are going to happen because that's the way they're supposed to happen. As long as you prepare. Don't be walking around like you're a leaf in the wind or a feather. You have to prepare. You have to make sure you have done everything you possibly can do, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
And, hopefully most parents feel the same way. The ones I have run into feel the same way. I only had one parent a long time ago. She actually came and sat, could you imagine, John, sat in all the sessions with her daughter, with me.
No.
Oh, I felt so sorry for the girl.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, she came in and she had already gotten a 33.
Wow.
And the mother said she's going to get a 36.
Wow.
I don't know who was more nervous.
Yeah.
Me or the daughter.
I'm nervous.
You're nervous thinking about it.
Right. Right.
Just as an aside, though, guess what?
Yeah. That's too much.
She got a 36 and she went to Notre Dame.
Oh, wow. Well,
I don't know how she's doing now, but it was really something.
Yeah. Well, she's probably not talking to her mother anymore.
I'm sure. I'm sure that's true.
So let's talk about the flow of working with you, because I think consistency and discipline is so important, and you infuse that in your training. And so my first question, I'm going to ask you two questions at the same time. What is the flow of working with you? And then there's a group of people that need you but maybe can't afford you, right? So there is that group. And so my question there is, what's the flow of working with you? And what's your advice to people who don't have the means to, forget you, any tutor at all? How do they prep, in a way that prepares them?
I'm going to start with your second part, John, if I may. It breaks my heart knowing that if you can get good tutoring, you can get a good score.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And so what about those who don't have the wherewithal in order to get the good tutoring? And I've always said, if I could just win the lotto or do something where I don't depend on the income, I would do pro bono all day long.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I graduated from the University of Detroit Mercy, and we're still involved in working on a program of pro bono ACT, SAT work. There are a lot of, and now with the COVID, but there were a lot of red tape. There was a lot of red tape to prevent us from getting started with it. But that was one way we're going to do. We're going to open up the university. People from the community could come in and we would give free tutoring. So that's one thing I really wanted to do, but it's not off the table yet, but it's certainly slow in taking place. The flow of work is in this way, getting to your first question, which I didn't forget. Depending on the student, okay, there are usually about 6 weeks in between each ACT or SAT test. A student really should use that 6 weeks to meet at least once a week per subject, actually. And it'll start out, sort of identifying. Not everybody needs tutoring for all 4 of the subjects, but that would have to be determined. And then I generally see my students for the English and the reading once a week, giving them some homework to do, expecting them to complete some things that I give them while I see them face to face. And that would be a flow until the test. I firmly believe that most people should take the test 3 times.
Yeah.
If somebody thinks they are one and done, they're putting too much pressure on themselves. And they should start early, too. You can't start, unfortunately, I've had too many seniors come and see me in September of their senior year and say, oh, we got to get a good score. Well, where have you been, basically? But again, you got to look at it this way, too, as far as investing money into tutoring. So many of these schools, Oakland University in particular is one, they give a lot of money for high ACT, SAT scores. And so you're investing money, but you're going to get it back.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And even if you're not getting a scholarship, you're investing it into a good college, and hopefully that the reward will be, that the person will graduate from your son or daughter will graduate from a wonderful college and have a wonderful career.
Yeah.
So it's an investment.
It is an investment. I mean, it's an investment. It is absolutely not an expense. I think too many people, when they look at things as an expense, when it is an investment, and many people don't invest in themselves in this way. And so, I mean, I recognize it is a luxury, but it is an investment for, it's like, it's like in business, there's cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And if you
there's some overhead.
Right. There's overhead. And if you have the ability to do it and grow your business, then do it. To me, I view it the same way as my children are just as important, are more important than my business. So,
of course, yeah.
So Tom, all right, good. So tell everybody, we're going to move into a quick speed round, but tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
The best way is either phone 248-891-0987, or you can get me on my email, thomasfdaniels@gmail.com. We're working on a website, not up yet, should be up hopefully within the next couple of months. It's going to be dynamite, but those are the two ways.
Right.
Most of my business now comes from word of mouth. It also comes from, I go and visit counselors at all the high schools in the area to let them know that I'm available. And unfortunately, again, the COVID has caused a little bit of more than a little bit of chagrin here with the business.
Well, you've adapted well. Jacob's been on a lot of tutoring calls with you and the team, so that's been great. All right, Tom, speed round. Ready?
Yeah.
Favorite book and why?
To Kill a Mockingbird. I almost cry every time I read it, and certainly in today's day and age, it's just fantastic.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
My mother told me I wasn't going to the local high school. I was going to a private all-boys school, actually U of D Jesuit. We lived on the Lower East Side of Detroit, had to take 2 buses to go, and it made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, it's great. And then lastly, Tom, you prep people to get to college, and now there's a lot of kids who have graduated college in a world that's going to look is looking, and it seems like it's going to look a lot differently than they thought it would even in March 1st of this year.
Yes.
So what advice would you give somebody who recently graduated college?
Patience, I think, is the key. I think any mistake I really made in life, I was impatient.
Yeah.
It has to come to you. You got to be ready. Dick Vitale tells the story about how he just slaved as a lower level basketball coach until one day a 7-footer walked into his gym, and as he said, the rest was history.
Yeah, I love that story. I went to a trainer years ago, and he always used to say to me, every time I worked out with him, and I was 23, 24, 25, he would say, "Slow down, grasshopper." And I say it all the time to clients, who are moving too fast.
Grasshopper. Oh God.
And I always loved it because it really kind of gets me grounded. Favorite athlete of all time and what they taught you?
I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Favorite athlete of all time and what they taught you?
Greatest athlete of all time. I loved Al Kaline. I was a baseball player in college. Just kind of a quiet superstar, and it just made me realize that just go about your business, and if you're good enough, people will recognize it.
I love that. And then my last question to you, Tom, is fast forward 100 years. You've shared a lot about if you won the lottery and the goodness that you would do with it, but and you're helping so many kids and so many families, get into colleges of their dreams. Fast forward 100 years, what do you want your legacy to be?
How I treat people. I have a plaque at Brother Rice. Long after they forget what you taught them, they'll remember how you treated them.
Yeah. Amen. I agree with that. Tom, a pleasure having you on the show. A pleasure getting to know you a little bit. Thank you for helping my son, my family, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate your wisdom, your time, and I appreciate your patience. You have such a calming presence, and it's been great. So thank you so much.
Well, it was an honor being on, John. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and anybody who's listening now or later, give them your contact information one more time, Tom.
Tom Daniels, 248-891-0987, or Thomas F. Daniels at gmail.com.
And I'm assuming you can tutor anybody around the country, right? I mean, especially with Zoom and video.
Yeah, I have. I've tutored people in North Carolina, tutored people in Chicago. It's anywhere, California.
Okay, good. All right, Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, that was great. And say hi to your family for me.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thanks, John.